morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. It is a fine and dandy morning. A little brisk out there. We are going to be joined a little bit later by Doreen Hannes. Doreen will be discussing with us some issues surrounding Agenda 21, our House Resolutions 7 and 11, which would guarantee or make a constitutional amendment, and we'll have some other issues that we'll be talking about as well. The issue of Agenda 21, as you're probably familiar, is very, very important to our state and our nation. We need to stop the process of Agenda 21. For my bullet points this morning, I would like to address the issue of the concept of Iowa, who is on the verge of legalizing raw milk. Now, this plays directly into the scenario that occurred with our friends over at Morningland Dairy. And Iowa is on the verge of legalizing raw milk sales from dairy farms. It's important for you to understand that the concept of raw milk, which is currently illegal to sell across most of the United States, is really a false issue. Because, just for comparison, let's understand something. Cuba doesn't outlaw raw milk. China does not outlaw raw milk. Even North Korea doesn't outlaw raw milk. Of course, without raw milk, they might not have anything. So I'm not sure that gives a whole lot of credence to it. But raw milk is legal to buy, to sell, and to drink in almost all of South and Central America. But in America, the FDA has ruled and mandated that all milk must be pasteurized. Only in America are farmers raided for raw milk at gunpoint. At gunpoint over raw milk. You've got to be kidding me, right? They're thrown in prison. They're stripped of their livelihood. Their farms are destroyed. Their homes are destroyed. They're bankrupted. They're stripped of operating cash. And their product, as we saw in the case of Morningland Dairy, is destroyed. I've got to question the real issue and the real purposes behind this. I mean, do we not, as individuals, have the choice and the right to make choices for ourselves? Must government dictate, even down to the milk we drink, how we can and cannot operate in our lives? Down to the cheese we eat? The process where you pasteurize and cook milk to pasteurize it, basically you have to cook raw milk at 160 degrees in order to meet pasteurization, which kills off all the good bacteria as well as the bad. That's assuming that there's some bad in there. And what we don't know, and what the FDA and the Milk Board in Missouri and many, many others won't tell you, is that the process of cooking milk actually makes it indigestible. It promotes things like constipation, sinus problems, and digestive disorders. Did you know that people who are lactose intolerant can, in many cases, drink raw milk? The problem is that we, as a nation, have allowed an administrative agency called the FDA to overrule what we know to be in our own best interest. What we know to be in our own best interest is that we should have the right and the freedom to do as we choose. Now, the same FDA and the state milk boards want to do things like add products to our milk. They now want to add aspartame to milk and yogurt and cream products. Did you know that aspartame is a poison? Did you know that? They want to change the definition of milk. This is the Food and Drug Administration and the milk boards. And the AMA, by the way. They want to change the definition of milk to include aspartame. Therefore, it doesn't need to be put onto the label anymore. Get it? Now, this is how they get around these situations. If they want to insert something into a product that you eat that's not good for you, they simply make it a part of the definition of the product, and then they're not required to notify you that it's in there. Why would you want to add a neurotoxic chemical to something that we eat and then not tell people it's in there so that they can choose to go for something alternative? It's a sweetener. Aspartame is used in all kinds of products, from sodas, and in many cases it's in yogurt today. In fact, I challenge you right now to go to your refrigerator and pull out a yogurt and look on it. You know what you're going to find? Aspartame. You see, it's always about the deception, the lie. It's about using excuses and changing definitions of language so that no one is aware that they're being fooled or manipulated. And this isn't just milk, folks. This is everything. This is in the PC, political correct language that we're required to state things in. This is in the legislation they pass. This is in the way in which the president uses a carefully worded statement that says one thing but means another. The fundamental change that we were 4 days away from, as announced by President Barack Obama just 3 or 4 days before his election. Fundamental change means, to me, fundamental change. That means a reshuffling of the deck. And yet we were told by the lamestream media, oh, that's not really what he means. That's not right. He's not saying that. The hell he wasn't. You want proof? Our country is going through fundamental change right now. Just because the Food and Drug Administration wants to insert poisons into your food, they change the definition. And then they don't have to tell you it's in there. Fluoridation of water. Aspartame in your milk and in your yogurt and in the dairy products that you eat every day. Ice cream. This, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know it, is the definition of politically correct. And it's the definition of manipulation. Remember, when government wants to manipulate you, they do so with words. They do so with words. The dairy industry wants to force us to use the products in a way in which they will benefit and gain the most traction from. Not necessarily what's best for you and me. We're going to take a break. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. On our return, and for the next couple of segments, we're going to have Doreen Hannes join us. Doreen is the purveyor of truthfarmer.org, and she is also heavily involved, as you know, in the Property Rights Coalition organizations, which can be found at prcnews.org. We'll be back in just a few moments, and Doreen will talk with us not only about this issue, but about some stuff going on around Agenda 21 and 2 legislative resolutions that are currently in the Missouri House as we speak. So stick with us. I think you'll find this to be an interesting segment. We'll be back in just a moment.
The area's best selection of firearms and ammunition can only be found at West Plains Pawn and Jewelry. Top-of-the-line handguns from Kimber, Smith & Wesson, Ruger, Glock, Beretta, and many more. A wide selection of ammunition including blanks, centerfire handgun and rifle, rimfire, a variety of shotgun shells, target, and turkey. With new arrivals every week, the area's best selection of firearms and ammunition can only be found at West Plains Pawn and Jewelry, 1713 West U.S. Highway 160, or shop online at westplainspawn.com.
Hi, America. It's Hugh Hewitt on the next Hugh Hewitt Show. Congressman John Campbell is overseeing the Federal Reserve. That's right. He is chairman of the subcommittee that oversees the Federal Reserve, and he is sitting in for me. So any question that you have ever had about the Federal Reserve, now is the time to ask it. 1-800-520-1234. Congressman John Campbell in for me on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.
Sundays from 6 till 7. Following Money Talk with Bob Brinker, it's the Weekend Journal with Hugh Hewitt on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
All right, we are returned. And Ms. Doreen Hannes is joining us this morning. Good morning, Doreen.
Good morning, Michael.
Thank
Good
you
morning
for your...
to all the people out there in the lovely Ozarks.
Thank you for your faithful joining with us on Friday mornings.
Well, no problem. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Well, thank you. You're very popular with our listenership. I get emails all the time about the fact that they like that you join us on Fridays. And so I'm glad that you've agreed to do that, because I think that it gives them, one, a break from me, which some of them will probably happily take. And secondarily, it gives them another viewpoint on some of these issues that we talked about. So let's talk about this issue about Iowa. Are you familiar with this new thing in Iowa?
Well, are you talking about their attempt to make it actually legal to drink milk?
You see, that's what people like, that you have a different way of putting things than I do. Yeah, they're actually going to make it legal for you to drink milk.
Isn't that sweet? You know we're in a free country when they get to tell you what you may or may not eat or drink.
Right. You know you're in a free country when you have to legislate that you may drink milk.
Yes, exactly. You have to get permission.
The land of the free and the home of the absolutely stupid.
It's pretty sad. I've been terming it the land of the fee and the home of the slave for entirely too long.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be good if Iowans could actually drink milk. It seems, all of this stuff with food, Michael, it's so ludicrous to me. And, people are like, well, the FDA has the right to regulate all of the food, so it's safe for us. Yet the FDA is responsible for approving drugs that kill 100,000 people every year.
Yeah. And by the way, who says the FDA got the authority to do anything? Because the Food and Drug Administration is an administrative agency which operates completely extra-constitutionally, has absolutely no authority to operate as given to them by we the people, and almost every regulation that they impose upon us is not in our best interest.
Well, absolutely.
So who's made the decision that the FDA is the great wizard behind the screen anyway, and that what they suggest and or do is even one got any power and is not immediately null and void as soon as they spout it, but furthermore that we haven't given them the authority to make law on our behalf.
Well, I think the FDA gives the FDA the authority.
Therein lies
they have that broad discretion, they claim.
Therein lies the problem.
Right. Well, yeah, that's one of them. That is for sure. That's definitely one of the problems. But, I think a lot of your listeners are probably aware of this, but back in, I believe it was May of 2010, in a lawsuit, in a motion to dismiss, the FDA put forward to a suit brought to them by Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund on this issue of raw milk and raw dairy, that you have no right to any particular food, nor do your children have any right to any particular food, that you have no right to contract, and that the FDA is looking out for your best interest in health.
In hell?
Yeah. Yeah.
In
that's
hell?
the other thing. You don't have any right to bodily or physical health.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
And they liken their authority to control what you and I may or may not consume, and they predicated their authority upon Scripture, upon Levitical dietary laws, Michael.
Gee,
so the
man.
FDA sets itself up as the Almighty. Thank you.
Isn't that interesting? Not to mention the fact that they ban the Scripture from anything else to do with government, but then use it when it's to their advantage.
Well, they
Gotta
can
love
pick
it.
and choose, I guess.
Right. Let's just pick and choose.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, there are a number of things going on in what's dubbed the food freedom movement, and the FDA is averse to any of those things. They want to literally control everything that you consume, and I think it's very important that people understand that the FDA is, effectively owned by Monsanto. All of the
Right.
people in the top levels of the FDA are Monsanto previous employees or consultants, or they have a tie to Monsanto. And Monsanto, funny enough, is 85% owned by Pfizer, the drug company.
Follow the money, folks. Follow the money.
Well, yeah, they get to make us sick, and then the drug companies get to provide us with drugs that the FDA approves based on their own tests to treat our symptoms that make us need more drugs.
Isn't that the Hegelian dialectic?
Well, yeah, I'd say
In
it's the
play?
hellish dialectic, actually.
The what?
The hellish
The
dialectic.
hellish dialectic, exactly.
Yeah. So it's I think it's good that the issue of people being allowed to actually source raw milk and drink it at their own discretion, we should be able to do that. And I just think it's absolutely ludicrous that people are, being fined and penalized and sometimes even put into jail for providing people with food of their own choice.
Yep. I get it. I mean, I find it, completely absurd that government wants to control everything about our lives down to what we eat and what we drink and what we wear and how we, for all intents and purposes, operate with our bodily function. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And, these kinds of things are where pushback must come from. I have to tell you, though, a lot of this, and let me rephrase that, the vast majority of all of this legislation that comes out of these administrative agencies is directly tied back into UN's Agenda 21.
Yes.
And, if you're one of those few folks that are sitting out there listening to us that thinks that Agenda 21 is some kind of tinfoil hat conspiracy crap, I invite you to go out there and see and hear what others have to say about it. If you're not aware of it, there are other states that are working, directly to ban Agenda 21 in those states. Mm-hmm. Now, we had Lyle Rowland not so long ago put out and it was in January, where he put out a discussion, a bill and a discussion on Agenda 21.
Okay.
And Agenda 21 promotes sustainable development. It was signed by Bush in '92, senior Bush, by the way, and that the Senate hasn't ratified it yet. But what we're talking about here are a number of other states that are banning the implementation of Agenda 21 in their states. Mm-hmm. Alabama did it last year. So, we need to make it clear. Folks, this harks back to the National Defense Authorization Act. When we first started talking about that, and when Obama signed it on December 31st of not this past year, but the year before, remember, everybody said, that's not what that means. That's not what it means. Well, let me tell you something. So far, about 17 states have passed NDAA bans. Mm-hmm. So obviously, when you've got 17 states that believe it to be true, that believe that this is an extra constitutional authority to snatch Americans and hold them in indefinite detention, you're only a conspiracy theorist and paranoid when you're the only one in the room who thinks that way. But when there's 50 of us and 20 of us are saying there's something desperately wrong here, and there's another 14 or 15 who are sitting there thinking to themselves and just unwilling to voice it, you're not paranoid. So Agenda 21 is real. And it's being slipped under the door, so to speak, in these subversive ways that they do this with language, with zoning, with the EPA, with these our own state Department of Natural Resources and others. Mm-hmm. So let us have your thoughts, if you would, on where we are on this issue.
On the constraining legislation for it, or on the issue overall, the constraining. Okay. Well, we've got two bills in the Missouri House and in the Missouri Senate. The House bill, which is House Bill number 42, put forward by Lyle Rowland, the representative you were referencing, has passed out of committee, and its next step is the House floor. Then we have a companion piece of legislation in the Senate, and that number is SB 265, and that is going to have a hearing on March 5th at 3 p.m. up in Jefferson City. And that bill, what this legislation does actually is it doesn't annihilate Agenda 21 within the state of Missouri. What it does is stop the state of Missouri and other, organizations that get grant money and stuff from taking your money to implement Agenda 21 on you. Mm-hmm. That's what it does. It stops the state and the political subdivisions from using your money against you to implement Agenda 21.
Right.
Okay? And that's the issue that, unfortunately, Michael, most people do not have any understanding of this. Effectively, it's a shadow government, really, that we've got in effect, these public-private partnerships. And probably the best and most applicable thing that people in this area can relate to was the attempt to establish the heritage area here, the Ozarks National Highlands Heritage Area. And it was 4 or 5 different groups, mostly out of West Plains, that got together and made a consortium and took grant money to go around to 13 different counties and establish this area as a regional heritage area, which then puts it up for nomination as a UN International Heritage Area. And it does something that's really horrific to me. It brings in all European spatial planning and zoning mechanisms.
Hello.
Yes. So that you have to, if you want to, right now, where I live, I can build whatever I want. If it falls on my head, that's my own problem, okay? But what would have to happen under European spatial planning and zoning, you have to do a viewshed study. You have to have an environmental impact study. You have to decide if it's going to mess with the theme of the area. So you have to build things that go with the theme. They want to turn our whole area into effectively a tourism like theme park.
Missouri, theme park of the United States.
Yes, so that they can go around and see us all sitting on our porches with our rough sawn oak smoking corncob pipes, and that's all we'll be able to do. And that all comes in.
Isn't that quaint? Look at them up there, sitting there smoking their corncob pipes with bare feet.
Right, exactly.
Playing banjos.
And
looks like deliverance to me, honey. How about you?
Isn't it cute? The thing is that these people form these consortiums, take this grant money, go around, talk to the county commissioners and say, hey, we want to increase tourism. Here's our plan. There's 4 pages of stuff. They don't tell them what the real deal is. Then they have to do a feasibility study. Once that feasibility study is done, then you can see what the actual plans are.
Right.
And the actual plans are very, very detrimental to our property rights and to our ability to profit from our labor, because effectively we all have to get permission to do anything.
You got to pass it to see what's in it.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
All right, when we come back, we've got a caller online who wants to talk about raw milk. If you don't mind, we'll take that call.
All right.
We're going to take a quick break, folks. And when we come back, we'll take that call, and we will continue our discussion surrounding Agenda 21, HB 42, SB 265, and a recent joint resolution out there as well. This is an opportunity for you folks to fill out witness forms, and there will be links on our Facebook page and on our website for you to get to these witness forms. Put in your piece and say your piece about HB 42 and SB 265, especially because this is going to be heard on Tuesday of this coming week. So time is up. You got to take action. We'll be right back.
Alert. I'm Chris Foster. Congressional leaders at the White House this morning to meet with the president about federal spending cuts due to start taking effect within hours.
The sequester cuts don't actually kick in until President Obama puts pen to paper.
The law has a provision that requires the president to order the sequester on March 1st.
And spokesman Jay Carney says that can happen anytime today, right up until 11:59 p.m. In the meantime, the president will meet with the House and Senate Republican and Democratic leaders this morning, and every federal agency is preparing to hand out its list of which contracts can be canceled and which employees will get 30-day furlough notices.
Fox News Radio's Rich Johnson in Washington. These spending cuts were originally passed a year and a half ago to force a deal on deficit reduction. The deadline was eventually kicked back to today. This is a Fox News Alert.
I'd like to thank our sponsor, Wits End Classic Barbershop, who is the sponsor of our telephone lines this morning. They're located on the square in West Plains. It's Wits End Classic Barbershop. Thanks to our friends over at West Plains Pawn and Gun. You can find them on the web at westplainspawn.com. They can be reached at 417-256-3000, and they're located on Route 160, about a mile past Walmart on the right-hand side. 400 guns undercover. Pizza Hut, our friends down there on Porter Wagoner Boulevard. They have an outstanding lunch menu with salad, pizza, and pasta. Excellent opportunity for you to have a great lunch and eat well and something tasty. Our friends over at the Battery Station at 303 Washington Avenue. You can find them on the web at batterystation.com. Telephone 417-257-7799. Our friends over at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance can be found on the web at ozarkmtnselfreliance.com. My friend Brian there can be reached at 870-492-4030. They're located a half mile east of Walmart at 3225 Route 62, Mountain Home. My friend Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, the best damn bakery in 100 miles. She's right off the square in West Plains at 2 Evans Arcade, and you can reach her at 255-2253. And my friend Bill Stone over at Stone Construction. If you're considering doing remodeling, custom or new construction, or anything like commercial, give Bill a call and have him bid on your project at 293-0116.
The deals at U.S. Cellular's unbelievable sales event are so incredible, even guys who believe in aliens can't believe them.
Open your eyes, sheeple. They are among us.
But smartphones under $100 and up to $400 in savings?
Conspiracy theory.
U.S. Cellular's unbelievable sales event, now through April 1st. U.S. Cellular. Hello, better. Phone offer valid on select smartphones. Other charges and restrictions apply. See store for details.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information. Email info@diamondmediaradio.com for complete details.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, with a mostly cloudy sky with a couple of flurries around. Clouds and a flurry through the day. The high temperature 36. It'll be mostly cloudy tonight, low 22. Partly sunny tomorrow, high 38. Mostly sunny Sunday, high 48. I'm staff meteorologist Jim Rinaldi, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
Family Fun and Fitness, LLC presents rape and assault prevention classes at Country Cupboard in Licking, Missouri. Men, women, boys, and girls, if you want to know how to stack the deck in your favor in a situation where violence is the only answer, this class is for you. Rape and assault prevention classes are held Monday evenings at 5:30 beginning February 11th and run through March 18th. Class size is limited, so call today 417-260-1006 or register at Country Cupboard, 217 North Highway 63 in Licking.
All right, return we do. We'll be joined by Doreen again for our second half of our show and a caller in reference to raw milk. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Morning, Mike, Doreen. Back in the day, I used to have me an old Jersey milk cow, and gosh, I was bottle feeding calves off of her, letting them nurse, and of course they had plenty of excess milk I would take and milk it. Of course, very clean, probably cleaner than any dairy in the country. Wash the udder, milk the cow, strain it. It didn't necessarily have to be pasteurized, but I use it for cooking and making the best chowder in the country.
Mm-hmm.
The reason probably our government has got their fingers stamped in so hard is because anything that moves, they want the money out of it. And with the whole milk being sold out the back door of the dairy, I doubt that they're going to get their fingers in that. Matter of fact, I'm looking for somebody who's got whole milk now for cooking purposes specifically. But another question I would have, I grow about a 2-acre truck patch every year, simply because there's people out there that are hungry. And I can't eat it all myself. My rows are 370 feet long. And, gosh, I grow a couple, 3 rows of okra, several rows of corn. And I call people, advertisements walk by, and I give it away. How long will it be, Doreen, before we see a massive amount of attempts to control that effort for us growing our own food? That way the government don't have their fingers in it.
Not very long, actually, because when Congress passed the Food Safety Modernization Act, they gave the FDA the authority to implement what are known as good agricultural practices, which is in effect tracing everything that can be eaten all the way back to the original producer, who must then consult with their technician to decide what they can plant, when they can plant it, where they can plant it, how it can be fertilized,
and
who
meet
can
all
work
their
in the field.
specifications.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
so it's just a matter of the FDA writing the regulations and enforcing that. And if you're not aware of this, in several cities across the country, it is illegal now to feed homeless people without having a license.
I guess I'm illegal.
Yeah. So anybody in need, you can't help anybody in that. And putting in the food code on a county level requires that, in most cases, that churches have a state-inspected, certified kitchen, and they have to get a license to have, like, a potluck dinner. And
I
all
don't
of
know
that
how
food
many
has to be cooked in that
pounds of turnips I gave to the church kitchens and stuff here in West Plains alone.
Mm-hmm.
But now people need to step back and wonder, why would we even wonder why 22 shells are so dead burn high? Guys, we'll see y'all later. Great talking to you, Doreen.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's very nefarious, and the end game on it really is set up for a complete famine, Michael.
Right.
And
that's part of the goal of Monsanto and the other food giants, the agri-giants, is basically to own the rights to control all food supply, growth, and distribution, so that, if they want to control you, they simply threaten to take away your food.
Right. And, the other thing is that there actually is a very toxic component to this. The USDA has a sheet of acceptable meat additives through their FSIS division, which is the Food Safety Inspection Service, and it's about 45 pages long. Literally half of the ingredients that can be put into meat do not have to be listed on the label.
Gee whiz.
And,
kind of like the aspartame in the milk thing.
Exactly like the aspartame in the milk thing. And, the issue is, I truly believe that we are smart enough to decide what we want to eat and from whom we want to get it. Okay?
Right.
Maybe some people aren't smart enough to do that, but they can always go to the grocery store.
Right.
For
or if
those
they're not
us,
interested or too lazy to do the research and be careful about what they're eating, then there is always the option to go out there and buy the tainted crap they want to shovel through the chains, right?
Yes.
But those of us who want to be involved in our own lives, who take an interest in our own health, who take an interest in the health of our children, we should have, let me rephrase that, we do have the right to say, not on my watch.
Exactly. We actually have an absolute duty at this point. I mean, they're going after our right to keep and bear arms with it. I mean, full force. It's being attacked.
No denying it.
The issue is that, unfortunately, in the realm of agriculture, the things that we all have to have, everybody has to have food to live, so we're all involved in it, they've effectively taken a coup on our ability to feed ourselves and our neighbors, and nobody was really watching, Michael.
Right. And that's the problem is, that's why Ben Franklin said to us, eternal vigilance is required in order to retain our republic, because we have to be responsive and monitoring what they're doing. If we're not holding their feet to the fire and perhaps sometimes in the fire, then we aren't doing our own obligatory part in the republic. You know,
Right.
it's important that we are participants in this, and that we don't. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you this example. When you put your kid into school, you expect that the school is going to solve all of the educational needs of your child. We find that parents who do that have made a terrible and critical mistake. When you hand your entire case off to your lawyer and say, here's a check, here's my problem, you deal with it and call me when you got a good solution, we find that those people invariably lose. When you hand your life over to Congress and say, here, you deal with it, tell me what I can and cannot do, I promise you, you will lose.
Yes.
And that's the problem, is that we have become so complacent in our society. You know, it's not like dropping off your car and asking the mechanic to change the oil and you come back and it's all ready to go. It requires some involvement on our part. And I don't have a problem with dropping your vehicle off and having the tires changed out. We you know, assume that individual will do it properly and right and you know, for a small fee, right? But when we're talking about things that affect our lives as important as our food, our health, our legal survival, our education, we act as if we're doing nothing other than dropping the car off for an oil change. Right. Well, I did my part. I went to the polls. That's not your part. That's the sequester. 2% of your part. Did I just mangle those metaphors?
I thought that was good. I liked it myself.
Here's the problem. You have an obligation to do more than just show up in a November election or
Right.
you know, any other time. Your obligation is not limited to just going in there and pulling a plunger handle.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we need to push the plunger multiple times.
Vote early and often, right?
Well, you know, let's just flush the trash out of Washington. That's what I say.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a Washington that has become, I mean, to follow the analogy, is a toilet terribly clogged, and we need to get in there with a plunger and clear it out.
Yeah, we need to. You know, actually, it's so
By the way,
difficult.
it's not limited to Washington. There's Jeff City too. I hate to, you know, drag it back home, but there's a lot of folks up in Jeff City that need to go.
There are a lot of people in Jefferson City that need to have some interaction with those who they presume to represent.
Yeah, presume is the right word.
Well, you know, unfortunately, Michael, there are a lot of big industry lobbyists even within our state, and there is a lack of knowledge about how all of this actually works among not just the people, but some of the legislators.
Sure.
So, you know, the legislators are just people. We're all just people, but we've been dumbed down and removed from the process so much that we don't even understand how the process works anymore. You know, for instance, I wasn't taught civics in school. I didn't learn how government worked until I got involved with government.
Right.
You know? And one of the things, and this is, we've got this House Bill number 42 and the Senate Bill 265 that are up there that are very important. And then yesterday, Representative Smith got this passed out of the House, and there is a companion in the Senate, and this is HJR 7 and 11, and it is a constitutional amendment.
Right.
In Missouri, we've got 3 different ways to pass a constitutional amendment, and one of the ways is to put something through the legislature and have it appear on the ballot. This is very dangerous, and I'm not attacking anyone in this, but this language has to be attacked in this HJR 7 and 11 and SJR 22, a companion in the Senate. And, you know, it has to do with food and agriculture again.
Right. No, it says the right of Missouri citizens to employ modern farming and ranching practices and equipment shall not be infringed. That's the language that they want to make a constitutional amendment. When we come back from this break, can we explore this a little bit?
We sure can.
How did I know you were going to want to do that? Folks, you're listening to America's Voice Now. I am going to put up on our Facebook page not only a link for you to fill out your witness form on SB 265 and HB 42, but also a video in which Lyle Rowland is doing a presentation. It's about 20 minutes long on Agenda 21 to the House Committee. We'll be right back.
The area's best selection of firearms, ammunition, and accessories can only be found at West Plains Pawn and Jewelry, your Class 3 dealer for automatic weapons and suppressors, including Gemtech and Huntertown, with a great selection of holsters, slings, magazines, and gun storage options. West Plains Pawn and Jewelry will also do special orders. With new arrivals every week, the area's best selection of firearms, ammunition, and accessories can only be found at West Plains Pawn and Jewelry, 1713 West U.S. Highway 160, or shop online at westplainspawn.com.
I know what you're thinking, Bunk. You're thinking, did he fire 6 shots or only 5?
Dirty Harry gets all his ammo from the battery station. John Rambo, you guessed it. He gets his ammo from the battery station, too. So if you need ammo, go to the place where the guys who know about ammunition go, the battery station. They have one of the largest supplies of ammunition in the area. So make sure you're stocked up and don't get low on shells. Go to the battery station at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains.
Opening an individual retirement account is an excellent way to start growing your retirement nest egg. Plus, IRAs may have significant advantages for you. Learn more about IRA accounts from a personal banker at Community First. They'll work with you on how to start your IRA so you are one day closer to retirement financial security.
Living up to our name, Community First Banking Company.
Community First, member FDIC.
Having difficulty with your computer? Do you think it has a mind of its own? Well, don't be alarmed. This happens to everyone at some point in time. Worry no more. Computer Dave and Kyle can help you out with PC Geeks, a weekly show right here on 107.1 The Point. Tune in Thursdays at 1 o'clock to ask computer-related questions and listen to the web topic of the week. That's PC Geeks here on 107.1 The Point.
We are back. Okay, so let's address this joint resolution numbers 7 and 11, and also the Senate companion variant or version of it.
Okay.
What's the number of the Senate companion version?
22. SJR 22.
Okay. Okay. So give us your insight on this.
Okay, this is on the ballot. What will appear on the ballot is what you said, that the right of Missouri citizens to employ modern farming and ranching practices and equipment shall not be infringed. However, what that sentence is encapsulating is this. The first part I have no problem with. That agriculture, which provides food, energy, health benefits, security, is the foundation and stabilizing force of Missouri's economy. To protect this vital sector of Missouri's economy, the right of farmers and ranchers to engage in modern farming and ranching practices shall forever be guaranteed in this state. No law shall be enacted which abridges the right of farmers and ranchers to employ agricultural technology and modern livestock production and ranching practices. Now, what is modern and what is technology?
Right.
Now, a lot of people are unaware of this. In livestock, we've got bioengineered animals. We have spider goats. We have mouse pigs. We've got eel salmon. And those are all agricultural technologies. And I'm not kidding. I mean, I wish I were. I couldn't make this stuff up, Mike.
Is there some kind of a DNA that we could inject into our Congress people for a constitutional representative?
That would be nice.
Whoops, did I just say that out loud? We need some George Washington and Thomas Jefferson DNA, and then we can just inject it into our Congress people, and our House and both state and federal. And listen, in like less than a generation, we'd have this all straightened out.
Yeah, there you go. We'll just figure out time travel and import them.
Well, here's my concern with this. This is exactly what I talked about earlier with definition. Right?
Yeah.
This is the concept where, because everybody would look at this and say the right of Missouri citizens to employ modern farming and ranching practices and equipment shall not be infringed. Well, that makes sense, right? And they use shall not be infringed like it's a Second Amendment right. Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is that they don't define what is agricultural technology, modern and traditional livestock production and ranching practices. Now, I'm okay with traditional livestock production and ranching practices, but the terms modern agricultural technology and modern and traditional livestock production. Right. So what that's telling you folks is that they are trying to insert into here, through a relatively nefarious method, the ability to utilize, all of the stuff that we don't want, which is the GMO and the genetic modifications and all the rest of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair assessment?
I say that's absolutely a fair assessment. And another aspect of it is, what about local control? CAFOs, which are concentrated animal feeding operations, have proliferated, and particularly in the hog industry and in the dairy industry, people can see this. In like 1980, I think there were like 600,000 hog producers, and now there's like 6,000. Okay? So there's a massive concentration. And what is happening is it's called vertical integration. The corporation that buys those animals is basically doing like a predatory land grab. A lot of it's happening in Iowa and in Nebraska. They'll buy a small piece of property, put a boatload of hogs on it, make it the neighboring farms uninhabitable by the people who lived there previously, and then they only have one entity that they can sell to.
Right.
And I mean, I think that the local control factor is actually huge in this. Right now, you have to basically go through the zoning processes and things of that nature in order to get the CAFOs in position. And in some places, it's okay to have a CAFO, but in other places, it's not. And right now, predominantly the hog producers, to a lesser extent the vertically integrated chicken growers, they're doing the same thing. They're buying these small properties that adjoin other properties, loading them up with animals. Nobody lives on those properties, and it makes the neighboring farms uninhabitable.
Right.
And it is a problem, and it's a problem for the community, because agricultural dollars that stay in the community go around 7 times.
Right, exactly. Versus being transported somewhere else. You're absolutely right. When you shop at a local farmer's market, as an example, or you buy a local animal that has been produced in your area and is taken down to be butchered or whatever, that money, and this is documented and it's well proven, that money stays in the local community and recycles and circulates itself time and time and time again, on average 7 times. That, as opposed to you buying Green Giant corn in a can, okay? Which means that money doesn't cycle even once, because you drop it off at your local store, and immediately that then goes to the coffers of whoever that entity is, and it's gone out of our community permanently.
Right.
Remember now, look in your small towns and your mid-sized cities and things like that. You don't see large shopping concerns and large stores doing anything for community benefit. They don't advertise locally in the community, which would recycle the money. They don't buy any products locally. Everything is brought in on a truck, right? They don't sell local meats or products or dairy products or locally grown vegetables in your local average chain store supermarket. Right. So think about it for a minute and recognize exactly what's happening. That money is being funneled away from the local community and transported or redistributed somewhere else. When you buy locally, that money goes directly into a farmer's pocket, who then utilizes that money to again put money into perhaps feed, or perhaps it's the payment of for his land or his property, where it goes to a local bank and again gets recycled over and over and over again.
Right.
So it's critically important that we have an opportunity to shop and to purchase products that are local. Stay local. It pumps the,
Yeah.
I mean,
it's very important, Michael. It regenerates a community. There was let's see, this back in the 1950s, Goldschmidt did this, basically a rural sociology study, took two different towns that were very similar in population and actually in the method of employment. And so people in one community were surrounded by corporate farms, and they did not have a very high quality of life. It was, societal problems. There was more crime, et cetera, on and on. This other community was surrounded by smaller family farms, and that community had a good quality of life. They had very low crime rates. They were generally happier. This is sociology, so they have all these different methods that they employ to ascertain whether or not it's beneficial or negative. And it really, truly is the case. When we have diversity and when we have smaller individuals benefiting from the production of their labor, then we have a better society overall.
Absolutely.
So anyway, it's very important. And this bill, it scares the heck out of me because it's like a Monsanto give me bill to me.
Sure. This resolution you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, now this hasn't passed, has it?
It passed out of the House.
Okay.
With flying colors, I
all right,
might
so
add.
SJR 22 is the one we got to hammer against.
Well, we got to hammer against this because actually we got to hammer against both of them, Michael. It could move through the Senate, go back to the House. It could go through the House, which it did yesterday, and pass through the Senate immediately.
So basically our goal would be to say that we have to take or strip the language of employ modern farming and ranching practices and remove that this whole thing should be shot down because it's interesting. In the body in section 35 it says employ agricultural technology in modern and traditional livestock production and ranching practices, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the actual constitutional statement itself says that the right of Missouri citizens to employ modern farming and ranching practices and equipment shall not be infringed.
Right.
Suddenly the word traditional is gone.
Yeah.
So in fact, if you wanted this thing to actually have any teeth or value to it, would be the right of Missouri citizens to employ traditional livestock production and farming practices shall not be infringed.
Actually, I worked on some language and to try to make this better. The issue with traditional then becomes define traditional because since the 1950s, the USDA has employed this, consolidate, get bigger, get out.
Okay, so let's just redefine that and say let's just take this thing and toss it in the round file.
I think that's probably the best idea.
I got
Unless, of course, I could get somebody to effectively change it to be the right of Missouri farmers and ranchers to engage in direct trade with consumers shall not be infringed.
Ooh, I like that one.
Because agriculture actually is the root of everything.
Agreed.
And, if we could get that done, then I would be for it. But I find that to be like a real long shot.
Okay, folks. Thank you, Doreen. Folks, we're going to put we're going to put up a witness form for you to talk about this House Joint Resolution. But also, because of the fact that it's already passed the House, get on the phone to your senator's office, and in this case, Mike Cunningham in the 33rd District, and get on the phone to your House representatives and state emphatically House Resolutions 11 and 7 and SJR 22 must go the way of the buffalo. Okay?
There
All right,
you go.
and we're going to put we're going to put up a witness form for House Bill 42 and Senate Bill 265 as well. So it'll all be up on Facebook and on americasvoicenow.org. We'll see you folks tomorrow morning, bright and early. Thank you, Doreen, for your generous contribution with us this morning. I appreciate it. And you can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org and facebook.com/America's Voice Now. Miller's next.